The opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts, guests, or callers, and do not necessarily represent the opinions of WTBR-FM, its management, other producers, or sponsors.
Hi, everyone. You're listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield with Roberta McCulloch of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsfield. Thanks for tuning in. So today we have with us one half of the dynamic duo. They are a power couple in the city of Pittsfield. And so Manny and Vannessa Slaughter. Unfortunately, Manny was unable to join us today, but we look forward to welcoming him at another time. So, Vannessa, I'm just going to speak a little bit about just the powerful background that you both have. You are a licensed social worker, and we know that Manny is a residential supervisor for the Alternate Living Center. But beyond that, each of you in your own right is driven by a unified mission helping young people in our community. And for that long-standing work, you both have been frequently honored with the 2020 Black Excellence on the Hill by the Massachusetts Black and Latino Legislative Caucus, being one of the most recent distinctions, also very well-deserved. So we're going to welcome you today, Vannessa, for a conversation on some of the work that you are doing, that Manny's doing together as a team in the city of Pittsfield. You have some new initiatives that have rolled out. So we want to talk a little bit about that. But I'm going to take it back to the very beginning because you love Pittsfield, but Pittsfield isn't your hometown.
That's correct.
Springfield is your hometown.
Yes.
All right. So, as we know, our hometowns, our spaces, which help to establish our first memories, it can either nurture or shake our foundations. So I want to know from you, what were some of your strongest memories connected to Springfield growing up?
Probably the family center, where basically was a community center in our neighborhood that everybody went to. We learned to swim there. It was all types of programs, arts, cooking, everything, sewing. It was a complete program, and we all learned to swim. And I became a lifeguard there and continued on from the age of 13 to 35. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So the family center, was that like...
It's like the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
Here.
Was it like an independent group?
It's independent.
Yeah.
As that it's in our community, and that's what we called it.
Okay.
It's like trying to think. I was trying to think of one that Pittsfield had, but I really maybe like the one that used to be next door to the Boys and Girls Club.
Catholic Youth.
Yes, that
Center,
one.
right?
Maybe like that.
Okay. All right. So you basically had this nurturing environment.
Absolutely.
Can we even talk about learning how to swim?
Yes.
Because I know historically in some Black communities that always wasn't the case. Was that something that you just jumped right into, learning how to swim back then?
No. I was taught to swim, in probably a little rough way, but I was taught to swim. And ever since then, I just loved swimming. I competed in swimming, and then I started teaching swimming. And I noticed that a lot of my friends didn't swim. Most of them didn't swim, but I did. So I started teaching in the neighborhood, going to different pools every summer and teaching the kids how to swim. Yeah.
Okay, so you saw a need even at that age and said, all right, I want to fill that need.
Absolutely.
And you still go back to Springfield.
I do.
Okay, so you consider that like, you still feel like that's home?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of ties still to Springfield.
A lot of ties. All right. So I want to know, how did you and Manny meet?
Well, I left Springfield College, and I had been out for a while, decided to go back to school for teaching. Ended up transferring to North Adams State, it used to be. Manny came up in recovery. We met each other through there, and resistance on my part, because, but he hung in there.
Right. Well, there's always something that brings people together, right?
Yeah,
there's always that something, and it's something obviously that has kept you together. So I want to know from Springfield, which is a larger city than Pittsfield.
Absolutely.
When you moved here, when you settled into Pittsfield, did you have family here?
No.
Okay.
I basically stayed here because, it's very silly, but they clean the roads really well compared to Springfield.
Yeah.
And I don't go out in the snow too much because it's very fearful driving. And it was amazing I could drive all the way up to North Adams and drive all the way back to Pittsfield, and the roads were clear.
That was your reason why?
That was my reason. Because I would have been calling into work because they never cleared my street in Springfield till like 12 noon. So, it was just impossible. But anyway, I guess they got better. But at the time, back then, that's really
that is
kind of
actually,
funny.
I've never, normally people say, well, I moved here because it was a small community. I moved here because of the trees. That's a first.
Yeah, well, that's a big because you got to work. You know what I mean? And you do have winter. And I love the 4 seasons. So you got to find something to work it out.
So one of the things that we've been in the Berkshires about 12 years, and I feel like when you find your community, they take you in, they accept you, and it really helps the transition. How did you find when you first moved? How did you connect into the community? Because obviously you're tapped in now, but when you first moved here, how was it for you? How were you able to make those connections?
Well, honestly, when I first came here, it was kind of difficult. People weren't very accepting. Basically, they had their communities, they had everything that I guess that they thought that they needed. But it wasn't for me. You know what I mean? I needed more. And I definitely expected more of my children, especially going to school. So there were some adjustments that I had to do there. There was some advocating I had to do for my children there to make sure that they were well-rounded. And it's just a fight that you do in any community. You know what I mean? To adjust. And it took some time. And we're still adjusting. And in certain ways, we're still fighting certain things.
Absolutely.
And it's just how it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you find that it was different in Springfield?
In Springfield, because it's so large, there's room for everybody. You know what I'm saying? We had 4 dance schools, you know what I mean? We had like 5 black lifeguards, you know what I'm saying? It was just, there was just so much and so many kids. You never had to worry about stepping on anybody's toes. And everybody said, okay, I'm going to have my recital here. You're going to have your recital there. We never stepped on each other's toe. Very much community oriented from elementary all the way till I left. I mean, I still have connections. So it's different in that way. It took me a long time, and still I have my certain friends. Like anywhere, but
of course, it's so interesting because from the outside, people will say like the Slaughters, like you're entrenched, and I think that's always part and parcel, right, of the journey, right? You don't always start out in that solid place. You have to work that road. You have to figure out, all right, where does this fit in? Where does that fit in?
Absolutely.
All right, so you found that it was a challenge in that very beginning. Were there people in the community? We've often heard certain names of certain people who sort of like laid the foundation.
Absolutely.
Who were those people for you who helped you acclimate to the community?
Definitely the Hamilton family. Mabel Hamilton and her whole family just like really took us in as family. Our kids and everything. So, and they're right around the corner. So absolutely 100%. The Hamiltons really laying down them for understanding and everything. And Miss Louise was another one. But basically the Hamiltons. Especially for my girls and coming from a new place and having to trust somebody with your girls. And that's a very serious thing. So,
I know what that's like.
I can say the Hamiltons, right?
I know what that's like. It's hard when those kids are little too. You're vetting everyone and you're like, I don't. It's so hard because they're little. All right, so you are able to find this network. You have the Hamiltons, and you're building community. You're building community. I know that you were a community activist in Springfield, so it wasn't a stretch to think about that you were going to do that work out here too. So for you, was it instantaneous where you said, all right, I see a need, I'm going to jump right in?
I'm going to tell you, it really wasn't. I just think that it was in there somehow. I think that when I came, and because my daughter was a dancer in Springfield, she wanted to continue to dance, and it was just different. So I had to take it upon myself to further that career because that's what she chose. So I had to go into teaching. I danced.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know how far I could go and bring her, but, you know, that's how it started.
Right.
It's just because there was a need for my own child that she wanted to dance, and I needed to feed that. So totally selfish, okay?
Right.
In the beginning. But then it grew, and she graduated, and I continued on. So there was a passion, and just that, you know, my mother's always been active, and my father. Definitely in the 60s, newspaper, all of that. We've held signs, so much involved. I've always said I don't want to be that much involved, but I think it's just in you.
It's in
especially
you.
when you see things,
That's
and
right.
it's like, okay, you know what? I see this. This doesn't feel comfortable. I have to jump in.
Right.
And I know that I have compassion.
Right.
You know, and I didn't know compassion shows up in a lot of ways.
It does.
And I didn't know that. But as I
How
got older,
how did you know it?
because you know what? Unfortunately, somebody had to tell me. You know, there's a lot of things that we go through, and life is really challenging to maneuver. And I know for me, and I can bear myself here because it's all right. People had to tell me because coming up in school and some of the things that I went through. In the early 60s, 70s, I just didn't feel as though you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when people started to tell me that, oh my goodness, you're so compassionate. And somebody would say, oh, you know, oh, you're this, you're that. Oh, you're too aggressive. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, something's wrong with me.
Right.
Because now I'm aggressive.
So you're
And I never
aggressive
seen
and
it
then
as
you're
that.
too compassionate. So it's almost, so it's like, how does that even work?
Well, I went to counseling because somebody said I needed to.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the counselor, she says, oh my goodness. She's like, just hearing you talk about your work, your compassion for people and humans. She said, don't you ever let anybody tell you that you're angry or whatever. She said, you are so compassionate beyond.
Yes.
And she said, don't you change.
Yes.
Now, it's a very challenge not to change.
Yeah, it's hard because
You know, it is very hard.
we have, and so we have our view of ourselves. And then we have the external view, right? And how
Absolutely.
people perceive us. And I was thinking about this the other day, too. It's like, it's so important to hold on to your sense of self.
Absolutely.
Because there are so many forces out there that seek to say, you're not enough.
Yeah.
You need to do this.
Yeah.
And it's actually really revolutionary to say, I am enough.
I am enough.
Just the way I am.
Just the way I am.
I am enough. And owning your passion. Because if you weren't passionate, you wouldn't do half the things that you're doing.
Exactly.
Because when we think about that dance, now, first of all, it wasn't like you just, I think we have to also give you proper credit because it wasn't like you just said, let me just start dancing because Naya wants to dance. Naya's her oldest, right? It wasn't because Naya just went to dance. You actually minored in dance at Springfield College.
Absolutely.
And you studied with Frank Hatchett.
Absolutely.
And so I am not a dancer. I'm not in that world. So I had to do my research on Frank Hatchett. And obviously he's renowned in the world of dance. And for anyone who's in the world of dance, they're probably like, how could you not know Frank Hatchett? But to know that you actually studied under his tutelage, you know, the fact that you had that proximity, you had dance in you.
Absolutely.
So when you moved here, when Naya wanted to continue with her dance, it wasn't a stretch for you to start the dance program.
Not at all.
So, all right, so Naya's not getting her needs met in terms of the dance programming here. And so you say, all right, we're going to start with you, Naya, and maybe a couple friends? Is that
Exactly.
okay? All right.
Yep.
All right. And
Gather your friends. We called it the Focus is Our Children, came up with a name, started to dance, it started to grow. And it just grew and grew. And just like, I just modeled it right after what we did for Frank Hatchett.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
From beginning of end of his classes to the recital.
Okay.
So it was easy for me because it was already done for me so many years.
Right.
I think the only thing was figuring out the money to get for them the costumes and that type of thing, which I got into grant writing, which I've never done that, but that seemed to work out.
Right.
So things were just kind of like happening, knocking down them walls as I was going.
Right.
You know, so yeah, and that went for 19 years.
Wait, so, all right, I got to, all right, we got to unpack a few things. How? Right? 19 years is a long, long time. How did you sustain this program for 19 years?
You know what? I don't really know. Okay. You couldn't have told me that it was 19 years when it was 19 years, you know. But I just believe, you know, I love kids. You know what I mean? And I truly believe that they keep you young. Yeah. I love to have fun. I love to laugh because I'm a very serious person. I also tell Vannessa, you're too serious. But I have children in my life, and I have my husband, so I have a good balance.
They give a good balance. Yeah, it's true, right?
Because I'm like, everything in order. And, you know, he's like, Vannessa, just best. I'm like, oh, don't do that.
Right.
You know? So it's a good balance.
It's a good balance.
Yeah, and so Naya danced. We had wonderful recitals, and people just kept on coming.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't fair because the boys weren't allowed. I had one boy the whole time. He was Michael Jackson. Great. He plays football. He was put in it for football.
Wait, his name was Michael Jackson?
No, he did Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. He modeled Michael Jackson in the recital.
No, I knew it wasn't the Michael Jackson, but I was like...
He was so good. And I choreographed just for him. Right. Because I can never say no to a child.
Of course.
So, you know.
And if that's their passion, then why not?
And he strictly did it for football because his mother was saying he's so awkward. Right. I said, so you know what? And I work with him and she just told me now, Vannessa, he's phenomenal in football. She said, you should see him.
Well, haven't we all seen the stories of the football players who do ballet?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So it's not a stretch.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was great.
All right. So for 19 years you did this and, you know, just, you know, learning more about the program back in the day. I mean, you had sold out shows. And so it was ballet,
tap, jazz, and tap to start off with. Right. As long as we could get the tap shoes, then it got difficult to get the tap shoes, so then it was just ballet and jazz. Yeah. So basically, like the first couple of years when we had Stefan Harris, who was a dancer here, and he did tap. Okay. He taught our tap for a couple of years that he was here. Then when he left, we just kind of stuck with the jazz and ballet. Okay. Because you don't really need shoes. Right. You know what I mean?
So were you able to, was this at no cost to the family?
Yes, no cost to the children.
For 19 years?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, we raised money, had some good families, you know, donations. You know, I just don't worry about it. It just kind of happens.
You just do it.
I've learned that, you know. I've even this whole weekend was really crazy. But I was so amazed that I just stopped to like, it'll have to work itself out because there's no way I can do everything.
Right. Well, I think
it always does.
Well, I mean, I think you almost have, and this is what I think about too. Sometimes when we get overwhelmed with life and the situations, sometimes we have to go back into our mental Rolodex and we have to remember what was. And I mean, you have a great catalog of experiences that you can tap into and remember when life gets hard or it gets extremely busy or chaotic. You actually can say, well, I've been here before, so I'm not going to get stuck in this place. So, I mean, it's always for a moment, not for a lifetime. So that was the beginning of the Focus is Our Children dance program for 19 years. What was the impact? I'm sure you've heard from young people who have gone through the program, some who you may see to this day. What are some of the stories or things that they have shared with you about being involved in that program?
I mean, the major things, a lot of them have gone on to college, and I think that's a really big one, and gotten full scholarships. They've also learned the importance of education. I'm a big component of education. I'm a big component of reading, that type of thing. So I was really strong and, you know, advocated seriously for that. And so they've gone on to college. They've gotten full scholarships. They're working. Their work ethic is there. I can say those who are parents, I can honestly say they're good parents because we raised our youngest in Focus. You know, she was the baby when I started Focus, you know. So she was raised right up in it. So they seen interaction, my husband, and, you know, and all of us. So they seen really how family is, even if you don't have it at home. Right. You've seen what it is.
Right. There's a model.
Yes. There's a model of what it's supposed to look like. Right. And so that was very important. And so then we brought boys in, and my husband started doing sports with the flag football. At about 17 years, I was into about 17 years. Then he started the boys. Yeah. And then we started the girls, and then he was doing the sports. Then we brought literacy in there.
So did you hear from, was it something that the parents, in terms, I'm always curious as to with like community service work, is there like a groundswell of advocacy where the parents and caregivers and loved ones are saying, Mr. Slaughter, we want this program? Or did he, again, you guys being observant, did you see a need and say, we're going to fill that need? How did it come to be?
Well, I think basically, as you know, I don't have any boys. So my husband would go over to the park and play with some of the neighborhood boys. So that's really how it started.
Okay.
Is that he would go over there, they show up, he had footballs, bring some more footballs, and pretty soon that was like something that the boys kind of looked forward to.
Okay.
It became a sports program. I had gotten laid off from a job or something that happened, and I said, hey, you know what? I want to put some literacy in there. And so it was just kind of it just happens, So the girls came and the boys came, and it ended up being a sports program and a literacy program and getting grants. And then we started to go under other people's corporations' umbrellas in order to get the funds to run a very good program.
Right. All right, so that created that literacy and sports camp, which had, how many years was it running for?
That ran for about 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah, we did it about 20 years. Yeah. They overlapped for a while, the dancing and them.
Because I was going to say, like, the intersection between the focuses on...
They overlap because I didn't do boys.
Oh.
So he was doing the sports with the boys. Then I wanted to bring the girls in because the girls hung out. I'm like, hey, well, reading books, I'm always reading books. So that kind of happened. So it kind of bridged over.
This is why it's important to get this history, because oftentimes when people mention the Slaughters and you get the accolades and people are like, yay, and you don't fully know the work that people have put in, because to do service work of that magnitude for the 19 years, for the 20 years, for the overlapping, there is a sacrifice.
Oh, absolutely.
Can we speak to the sacrifice that occurs during that time? Because you're not superhuman. And you have a family, you have a professional life, you are a person. And so when you are expending all this energy and you are serving the community, you are putting out. What was that sacrifice during that time, and how did you reconcile it?
Well, first of all, if our girls didn't accept, okay, in order to do something, especially with other children and giving so much of yourself, you have to make sure that your children are okay with it. Because it could have been a very ugly scene. However, starting off with Naya and her friends, you know what I mean? That was a knit. She didn't mind it. She didn't mind me giving to her friends because it was also helping her. And then she became older and started to help with the other girls because she danced.
Right.
Now, Nyana comes.
Right.
Nyana's totally sports.
Okay.
So that was, I was like, you know what I mean? I don't know how this is going to go. One does dance and one is totally sports.
Right.
However, Nina came a lot of times with us.
Okay.
Because she had no choice.
Right.
I was still breastfeeding when I started
with
Nina. So she was there. So she kind of seen it. And, of course, I had to have her dance because she's going to do sports. You got to have rhythm. You got,
Right.
So, all right, we're going to try to mold this in somehow. And then my husband actually, she plays sports.
Right.
She could throw a football just as well as anybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's who he, So she would go with him. And then we started to bring in the other girls.
Right.
And the reading and some of the structure. And, yeah, it just kind of made sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were able to, that challenge was basically making sure that your girls were good.
That they bought into it.
That they bought into it.
Absolutely.
Right. Because that's a long time.
And it's a sacrifice because I had to sacrifice being home with them when he couldn't.
I was going to say.
A lot of people say, oh, we always see your husband. We never see you. I said, that's because I'm raising my girls.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't raise the girls out in the street.
Right.
You got to raise them at home.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
For me.
Right.
You know, when they're out there, we're out there at the times that we should be out there. And we're not.
Right.
He could do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a sacrifice of me. But my mother always said, if you put the work in now, you won't have to put it in later.
That's true.
I really look forward to that because it's a sacrifice for children.
Well, I mean, first of all, both of your girls are doing excellent. I mean, I'm in more contact with Nayana because she's here, but I mean, Naya is doing excellent.
Absolutely.
She has a wonderful life.
Absolutely.
She is doing her dancing. Sometimes I see videos of her doing her dancing. So obviously she's still in that world. And Nayana, I mean, she is in the political world. I mean, she has come back to Pittsfield. She is making sure that she's involved, she's connected. So you put in that work.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
You must be so proud.
I am.
I know.
I'm so ready to do me. I'm so ready to do me. And I'm,
Well, I don't think that's happening quite right now because we're going to talk on a journey. But the fact is that both you and Manny are not stopping.
I know.
You're not stopping because, all right, so we have the Marilyn Hamilton Literacy Program. We have that going on for 20 years. And at one point, I remember it was like a couple years ago, it was the end of the program. There were a lot of like accolades, celebrations. And then it was like, we're going to take a pause. We're going to take a breather for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you guys paused and you breathed for, I don't know, it was like a break. You had a break.
It was like 2019. Right. The summer.
Exactly.
COVID started like then. So
right. It was actually a break that everyone had to take.
Right. I mean, we had no choice.
Right. That's true.
So it was like, okay. Well.
Right. But then what made you, because I say all that to say, your girls they're adults now. You guys are empty nesters. Some people would say, it's my time.
Right.
I'm going to, maybe indulge in some things that maybe I didn't get a chance to do. But what do the Slaughters do?
Well,
they say, we're going to restart a program.
I know, right?
So do tell us about the next phase of the Focuses on Children.
Well, we came back, there's a need, and it's just very hard when you have the compassion that we do to sit up there and look at things that are happening in your community and not doing anything when you've done something about it and you made an impact.
Right.
And our children. You know what I mean? Because we spent so much time doing this. Now they're saying, well, Ma, you can't stop. You got And I'm like, whoa, y'all. So it's kind of like a whole family. And I said, you know what? I really, because I'm a social worker. Right. I'm so done with all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was. However, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. And I do love to dance. I'm dancing at home all the time. So I was like, Vannessa, what's the difference? You know what I mean? He's like, you down there rocking out. What's the difference?
Right.
You know what I mean? Go teach the kids. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I love the kids and I love to dance. And it does get me out to exercise because I said, I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to do this. Didn't do any of it.
Right.
I dance. That's what I do.
Right.
I don't do the workout in the gym and I swim.
Right.
I don't do a workout in the gym. I don't want to sweat like that. I only dance. Okay? That's it. Like,
you got to know what you like.
I do. I don't like machine. All that's no.
You have to know what you like.
I'll dance. I'll even do a Zumba.
Yeah.
I'll do a Zumba if it's the good music. Don't bore me. Because I drift off. I'm like, okay, I take off. Right. I am so impatient and I'm really working on it.
Yeah.
In meetings, my legs are popping under there and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is serving nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm working on it. Though.
Yeah. Well, so do tell as to why and how. I mean, did you guys have to have deep conversations? Even if Manny was like, all right, Vannessa, you should restart this program. All right. So you say, I'm going to. Then what was the next step? How did you make all the pieces come together?
Well, we have talked about it, and we've been talked about it. I don't even think we stopped. And seeing the kids, when you see the kids that you've already touched and you see what they're doing, and you just look at what our program's doing. There have been so many kids who've never even seen what a college looked like. And for them to be able to go to college and go to the classrooms, kind of see how it is, cafeterias, eat the food, it took all of that fear out of it.
Right.
These kids want to go to college.
Yeah.
And these kids wanted education. You know what I mean? A lot of them turned around as to say, you know what, you want to get out of here, this is what you got to do. It ain't hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is what you got to do.
So I have to ask, looking back, I mean, you have almost like a 20-year retrospective. from that time to this time, what are the differences with kids today? They have a lot of different influences. It's not the same generation.
It's not. And it was very challenging getting kids because when we started before, kids played outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I went around in the neighborhoods, to round up my children because this is what I do. You know what I mean? I go in the neighborhoods, I round them up. There were no kids in the neighborhoods. I go in the different projects. There were no kids. So I had to end up going to the schools, which I like to get them in their own environment.
Right.
But that's kind of how I had to do it.
Right, because they weren't outside anymore.
Yeah. And word of mouth. Right, just putting it back out there. People that I've seen, I'm back dancing, that type of thing. But kids aren't playing outside like they used to. And that's scary.
Thing.
That's so scary.
The times are so different. Back in the day, yes, you would be able to play outside, but between the things that keep them indoors and then also just
things are changing.
It's just so hard for parents to just let kids out
like they used to.
And you would be able to actually just go off.
Oh yeah,
and then come back
all day. You just make it before the lights turned on, right?
We used to go on like bicycle adventures and think we had like ultimate freedom because we had our bicycles.
Absolutely.
And it's different. But I'm glad that you're able to work within that difference and figure it out. Because some people would say, well, it's so different, I can't figure out how to tap into it. But you found a way. You went through the schools. You went through word of mouth. And I'm sure that having the last name and the person and the brand actually preceded you.
Oh, yeah.
Because that just opened the doors. Yeah. So tell me a little bit of how the dance program is going on right now. Where is it being held? How many kids are involved?
Oh, wow. It's being held at the Nautilus.
Okay.
Right now, I have about 15 beginners.
Okay.
So my first class is about 15. I'm working right now with 2 advanced beginners. And I'm just trying to recruit more for that top dance class. So it's actually going really good. I just have a young lady who's going to be helping me, hopefully.
Okay.
This is something that I've never had, but I've always wanted because the thing is I want this to continue.
Right.
So I'm looking for some little girl just to stay in there, hang in there. Just like I did with Frank Hatcher and I can model him. She could take over and she could model that. You know what I mean? And then it gives me opportunities to bring in more things and really get this up and going.
So why don't you have like some kind of formal apprentice program? This way you can actually have people in the pipipeline who want to be your like next generation. You could have that. That could be, so you can have your dancers, but obviously you are a professional, Vannessa. So so you want to make sure you have that pipeline built up. So you're doing that. And then there's another component to this phase of the Focus is Our Children. There's the after school work.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that.
All right. After school work. My husband runs the after school program. It goes from 4 to 6. That's for boys and girls. And the school-age children, they come to the Amy Zion Church on 163 Linden Street for after-school help. We have volunteers that come in and help them. It's a great program, and it's there if kids need the help. We also have mentoring, so there's like some one-on-one, and, so it's a nice little component. Added, and then we also come summertime.
Right.
So dancing and after school and mentoring will be for September through June. And then in July and August, we have our summer program. And that'll be the sports with a little bit of reading or whatever type of educational.
Right.
I'm going to do that part.
Of course.
Got to have that education.
Well, it's so important to have both of them. But
absolutely.
How did you find restarting this time around?
It was kind of difficult.
Okay.
Only because finding a suitable place. Before when I did it, I was able to do it at the local Christian Center. A fellow colleague of mine from Springfield College let me do it at the Y. It was there. And, Berkshire Coalition let me do it there. And you know what I mean? So it's kind of bounced around.
Right.
As far as places to have it. And it's, still. So hopefully one day there'll be a center.
Wait.
And all this can be in it.
Is that a future hope for you?
That's always been my goal.
Okay.
Always been. I know they tried it 50,000 times in Pittsfield. That's why that's my goal.
That's your goal.
That's my goal. Yeah, our family's goal is to get that up and going. So we'll see. Keep hope alive.
Well, I mean, I think that obviously seeing Nyana, you know, she's back here and she's doing the work. You had mentioned something about with some of the young people and wanting to leave, but let's talk a little bit about those who they leave, but then they come back.
Absolutely.
And I will never forget, I remember having a conversation with Mother Hamilton, and she had talked about the importance of coming back to the community, building it up, because I think for her, she was able to witness what happened when people left, and perhaps there was a void that was left there. So, have you been able to see young people, in addition to your own, but young people come back and contribute to the community?
I think they're starting to come back. I think a lot of them, when they see that there's someplace for them, you know. And new blood. You got to be open to some new blood and some new, you know, suggestions and some new, you know, because that's what it is. A lot of times, you know, we want to stay the old way works. Why try? With this new blood coming, and you got to embrace it. You know, I mean, really, these kids are amazing. Nyana was amazing at 3. And I just had to take my hands off and said, okay, God, you go with it, because this is really crazy what's happening. But look at her.
So how do you, as someone, you refer to the new folks, the new blood, right?
Oh, your new blood.
So I'm not going to put a label on you.
I'm sorry.
I'm not going to put a label on you, so I get myself in trouble. So how would you say that in terms of how you've been able to maneuver with folks who are coming onto the scene? They may not have that history. You might have actually seen them grow up.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely.
And you see how they are on the scene and they're doing the work. What are some of the strategies that you can share in terms of navigating that kind of terrain for good collaboration and coalition between sort of the vanguards and the new ones?
Well, really, Nyana is one of the new ones, and just hearing, you know, there's always another side, you know, and so just letting them talk, you know. Always had to listen. Nana's so opinionated anyway, you know, and she's gonna get your attention.
Yep.
You know, and she always been that way. And if you don't want to hear it, then she'll write it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Slip it under the door. But you are going to hear her, you know, and that's how she is. So that's kind of how that generation, and she'll say, okay, well, that's okay, but look at this.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So they just have a whole nother way of doing things. I mean, look at in school. They don't even do math the same.
Let's not even talk about
that. They're doing some writing stuff, and they're all in the margins where you never went in. I'm like, ooh, that was a no-no when I was in school. I can't help.
Yeah.
So we have to let go of the wheel and let them do the wheel. I could never tutor anyone. I have to go to 9. You know what I mean?
Right.
They do it different.
Right.
So you have to let them have the wheel. The world's not going to go backwards in that retrospect. Okay, we may go backwards in some things, but we will not go back in that retrospect.
Right.
That's going to keep going. We are going to have these children that are going to go up.
Right.
Yeah. You got to let go and let them do it, because this is their world.
Right.
You know?
Right. Very, very important. And I think that those are lessons, too, that you're able to impart, especially with the ones that are coming up, in the program, seeing your leadership, right?
Absolutely.
Because I can remember the people who served as leaders when I was coming, and they probably don't even think that I remember.
Right.
But you remember.
You do.
You remember those models. And I think it's important as we think about even like the city of Pittsfield and we think about the community, moving it forward, it's not going to be the same community that it was in the 80s or the 70s or the 90s. You know, so it's thinking about what is it today. What would you think are some of the, and we talked a little bit about some of the needs, in particular for like the West Side and stuff, but what would you say are some of the things that you have seen, collective needs that people, in addition to the Slaughters, can help and speak to? Because we all can help. We can all help. So what are some of the things that if people are looking to say, well, I want to be a part of my community, I want to roll up my sleeves, I want to help, what would some of those things be? And how can they do it if they want to be like you guys?
The thing about it is just come out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just come out. I mean, we ran a program for 20 years, you know, and at that time, it's like, if you're interested in helping at any time, you could have came out, you know what I mean, and been right there with it. You know, we're always looking for volunteers.
Okay.
You know, and everybody has a talent.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just met a young little plumber. You know, when I meet people like this, my head starts to go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, everybody has something to give.
I think that's important, too, for people to remember that we all have a contribution. And, you know, sometimes I think, like, even we see on, like, social media, people will sometimes, it's easy to offer critique. It's easy to say what's going wrong. It's easy to point the finger and say, but you're not doing this, but you're not doing that. And we always know what happens when you point the finger. You got three more pointing back at you. So it's like, all right, that might be true, but what are you doing to help? I think, too, in that model of leadership and that model of giving, you know, full disclosure, we belong to the same church.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that we have seen at our church is that the outreach and seeing a need, seeing that there are people who may be hungry.
Yeah.
So even on Saturdays, having meals available to folks, right? So I think, again, finding that need, tapping in, everyone has something to offer. Everyone can do something. If you see something, do something, because everyone can make a difference. So that would be sort of your boilerplate strategy for getting involved. Don't think about it.
Just get involved.
Just get involved.
You know, it's community, you know, nobody can do it on their own.
Right.
You know, there's no big eyes and little U's, okay? Because we're all going to leave this earth.
Right.
But what are you leaving? You know what I'm saying? And that's so important because, you know, what are you doing with your life?
Well, I have to ask, when you, obviously you're passionate about this work, but how do you find time for Vannessa?
Well, I'm going to tell you that was something I had a crash course on that I've had to learn, that I'm not Superwoman.
Because you thought you were.
Yeah, I did. I did. I thought that I could do all things, you know, and that I've learned that people will give you more than you can handle. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah.
Because if they see a plate and they see there's already stuff on that plate, well, what's a little bit more?
What's a little bit more? Yeah.
Right.
And I think for me, I had some medical stuff, you know what I mean? And I was doing too much, and I had to stop. And I went to Springfield College, spirit, mind, and body. Here, I had to go back to Springfield College. I had to get my spirit, my mind, and my body together. You know what I mean? Because it was not together. And it is coming together. But the main thing I had to do is I had to be true to myself. Okay?
How did you find that out? How did you find yourself?
How did I figure that out?
Yeah.
The man upstairs.
Okay.
Really, because I never knew. I never knew everything. You know, you won't feel everything. You know what I mean? People think when you're not well, you're going to feel it. That's not true. That's not true, and I think everybody needs to realize that. I took care of everybody in my family, and you know what? It was time for me to really take care of myself, and I started to do that. Dealing with some things, you know what I mean?
Right.
However, the biggest thing that I've learned is that Vannessa needs to be okay with Vannessa.
Right.
And I'm not going to compromise my goals, my ethics, or anything. Because when I compromise my goals, my ethics, or how I feel, I get sick.
Yes. Because that weighs on you. That weighs on you.
I am out of sync.
Yeah.
You know? Ooh. So you know what? I fear that more than anything in life.
Right.
Because I could have lost that. You see what I'm
so
saying?
You must have had...
I had some things.
You had some things.
I had some things. I was dealing with some stuff, and I just kept going, and not dealing with it. And I need to deal with it. And you know what? I really had to go into prayer. I really had to do some things.
You know, Vannessa, this is so interesting when we're talking about this, because I just ordered this. I'm reading this book right now, and it's called Rest is Resistance. And it's talking about the power rest, and how we oftentimes go, and we think that we're like, we turn our bodies into like machines, and we think that we can add a little bit more, do a little bit more, because why not? Right. And so we do more, and we think by doing more that we're more productive, but sometimes we do it at the cost of ourselves. Yes. And so this book, I just started reading it, but it's talking about how it's so important to actually rest. Yes. There is a gathering, there is restoration in that rest, and it's actually counterintuitive to what sometimes society might say, because we're a society that goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's so interesting that you talk about that, and the fact that you are in tune to your body being out of sync. Something alerted you, whatever that something was.
Well, somebody alerted me.
Somebody alerted you.
You know what I mean? Okay. Somebody said, "Vannessa, are you okay?" Okay. Now, I knew I was a little bit overworked or whatever, but that caught me. And it said, I had to tune in and say, "Are you okay?" When's the last time you tuned into yourself? You've been sitting here running like a robot. Pay attention to your body. You're dropping weight. Different things were going on. Wasn't paying attention.
So wow, this is really deep, because you're doing all of this. You're almost having these experiences, and then again, we're putting back on that community hat. So here's Vannessa, the person going through this personal pain, but then that outward face is you're doing for others, you're supporting others, and nobody knows that conflict that you're going through. Yeah,
right. You're right. And I keep things to myself. I think that I can handle stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah, don't we all? All women think that.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, we all think like we can handle it until we can't.
And then we think that, okay, you know what? They can't handle this, so I'm not going to say anything. I'll just keep it to myself, because look at it. They can't handle it.
So I have to ask, but with all that you have, the fact that you have this awareness, the fact that you have gone through this, what are some of the things that you would say to others who are dealing with, they are realizing that they are not superhuman, that it's okay, phones ring, it's all right. It's all good. It's all good. What would you say to folks who they think that they're superhuman and they think that they can go? What guidance would you give to them?
But I would say really pay attention to your body, because it will tell you. And I would say at least once a month, do something for yourself. Be mindful.
What do you do for yourself?
I read. I read a lot now. Reading has always been my passion, but I've gotten away from it. I had to stop to say, okay, Vannessa, what did you used to like to do?
Right.
And I like to read.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. Okay. I take myself away. Okay. My husband now understands why I need my own time.
Right.
Okay.
So you have your own solo trips?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Or I'll go with a girlfriend.
Okay.
But no.
Okay.
I can't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I'm not going to cook. I don't want to hear you're hungry. That's not, no. I mean, women need that. Come on. Mommy, I'm hungry. Babe,
right.
what we having for dinner? Come on. No.
So you...
No.
Vannessa's like, I need my time.
My time.
We all need our time to rest and recharge and all of that. All right. So...
I might get in trouble again.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. So we talked a little bit about that, and we talked about the advice that you would give. When we're thinking about the next iteration or the next project down the road, because you wouldn't have thought a couple years ago that you would be starting a new chapter of The Focus is Our Children. So I have to ask you, what is and you gave me a little nugget. You talked about how the community center, that's still a passion project that you haven't given up. But what's the 5-year plan here? What do you envision, or what's in your heart that you would like to see in addition to the work that we're seeing today?
Well, actually, I just want to see the program being successful, I want to see a lot of the kids on the west side. There's a lot going on in Pittsfield. I can assume that. But there's a certain group, you know what I mean, that may not be doing all those things, you know, and those are the kids that we like. They're not the ones that are in, they might be this one struggling in school. You know what I mean? Something going on with the parents. You know what I mean? Parent not taking time to do this or taking time to that, and they, you know what I mean?
Right.
They are not the ones that people are getting. You know what I mean? Basically, you're getting the ones that the parents say, oh, I heard about this. I'm going to bring my child here.
Right.
Oh, I heard about this. I'm going to bring my child here.
Right.
Or, oh, somebody gave me a call. They're going to be doing this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Call so-and-so. This is all up there. This ain't getting to the kids we got. Our camp program, I mean, when you have 100 kids and on a given day, 65, are you kidding me?
When we think about that, when we think about that program and the fact that it had such breadth and depth, the word of mouth must have been crazy.
Yeah, and you know what? It was a good program, and I think just the family being involved, how we are. My husband's mannerism, he's a big kid, and everybody knows that about Manfred. Right. You know what I mean? He's a kid at heart. You got to love him. That's a big part of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just believe, and this is my belief, from me dealing with kids with swimming and everything and expectations, that kids want structure. Kids want to know, what expectation do you have of me, because I want to meet it. And when they can meet that, that's such a wonderful thing. You know, when it's, you know, it just blows my mind. I love for a kid to make me smile.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I want to smile and be happy more than I want to do anything else.
Well, I think especially too what we have seen, there's so much right now happening in our world, in our society, and I think that balance that you spoke about, that balance of, you know, even if you might be, you know, your personality might be a little bit serious. Yeah. When you have children or young people around you, you kind of have to loosen up. You kind of have to, like, they're going to make you smile. They're going to make you do a lot of other things. They might even give you a couple gray hairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I've been there.
You know, but you're right. There's a balance, and there's something to be said for knowing that you are helping that next generation thrive and be their very best. I think going back to what you said about tapping into those who really need it, I'm just thinking, like, the methods of getting to those groups of families and children, did you have to reevaluate your strategies, especially when you think about 5 years from now? How are you going to make sure that you stay connected to those families and communities?
Well, I think that because of where we're always basing our programs, we're going to get those kids.
All right.
You know what I mean? We try to keep it right on the west side. I mean, I could have been on the other side, but I keep that in mind of where kids have to walk, because a lot of kids have to walk.
Right.
So I wanted it on this side of North Street.
Right.
You know, it's pretty easy to get around on this side. Once you start crossing, you know,
So proximity, location.
Absolutely.
And brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brand. When you thinking about your life and the people who have influenced you, who or what do you most admire?
I can say my mom.
Okay.
Most of all.
Okay. Why?
Because I see how she raised 3 of us. I see I only had 2. And that the courage that she had and what she had to endure to lose her husband at such a young age. Very young. And I mean, you don't realize it. And we were tough kids. I wasn't a walk in the park. But what she did, you don't realize it until you're grown, you know, and you see, and you have your own children. Right. And you really see, I'm like, whoa. Like, whoa.
Right.
I know people who had the mother and father and still lost their house. And you know what I mean? My mother, all of us went to college, you know, and graduated. So my mother is awesome, you know, and I know she's done the political stuff. I've held signs. It's been really, really, She is awesome.
Wow.
To go through that. I just don't know.
I mean, I'm always fascinated when I hear about, individuals such as your mother who made everything seem so seamless. Were you ever able to sit down with her and say, Mom, how did you make it all look so easy when I know it was so hard for you?
Yeah. She's like, Vannessa, you do what you got to do.
Right.
You do what you got to do.
Right.
And we do have a big family.
Okay.
You know, she's one of 18 brothers and sisters. So even though I didn't have a father, I have many uncles.
That's a big family.
Yeah. Many uncles, many bigger cousins. So
all in Springfield?
Yeah, all in Springfield. Most of them in Springfield.
Wow.
One's still in the islands, you know, in the British Islands.
Okay.
But a big chunk came to Springfield.
Wow.
In Connecticut, surrounding, yeah.
Okay.
And those were all my friends. My cousins were my friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Vannessa, I mean, I think I've learned so much about you. What does the future hold for Vannessa, the person?
The person, Vannessa, just happiness.
Okay.
You know, I just want to smile a lot more, be a lot happy.
Okay.
There's some things touch some people's lives, certain lives, you know, that I do want to touch and help.
Okay.
Because I've accepted that's how I am. And just enjoy my family, enjoy traveling, enjoy the children. Just live life a day at a time.
I love it.
Really, you know, it's like,
I love it.
just stay in the moment and be happy.
And if you had to choose one word to describe you, what would that be?
Challenged.
Challenged? Really?
I
wasn't expecting that.
I know you won't. But everything, being a social worker is a challenge.
Okay. All right.
Doing this dancing is a challenge.
Okay.
They're all challenges for me.
Got it.
And
got it.
That's the word.
Got it. All right. I had to put it together because I was like,
I know, right?
I
said, surprised. I was like, wait a minute, let me explain this.
I was like,
I always put my stuff in.
I was expecting something different, and you stumped me, which is good.
I stump a lot of people.
Which is good, Vannessa. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, Vannessa, I just want to thank you so much for a great conversation.
Yeah.
I'm so glad our listeners were able to learn a little bit more about the one half of the dynamic duo. I call it the Manny and Vannessa duo.
Well, one can't be without the other.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
And I do the paperwork and all that, and he's out front getting the money. And I mean, I'm not good like that. You know what I mean? He could talk. You saw him.
I know.
Talk. He could do that, girl, but no. Paperwork, not so much
but
for him.
Each of you are a force with
Absolutely.
in your own right, and that's why you have made it work for so many years. I'm so appreciative. I know so many people are appreciative of the work, the selfless work that you do in our community. So I just wanted to thank you, and thank you for staying at it. And if folks want to learn more about getting their kids involved in the new programming, where should they go? Who should they call?
Well, they should call 413-499-2668 and leave their telephone number, or they can email us at thefocusesourchildren@gmail.com. If they'd like to give donations, they can also send donations to focusesourchildren@gmail.com at 55 Backman Ave, Pittsfield, Mass. 01201. And our account is at Greylock, so you could just simply bring it up there and put it in.
All right, Vannessa. All right, everyone. Thank you, Vannessa.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. You've been listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield with Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsfield. Thanks for listening and have a great day.